Hi and welcome back to my channel where I am exploring different places around the world and telling you stories from my travels as a solo adventurer. I'm back with a brand new series which I'm really excited about because I'm going to be exploring one of the most bizarre, interesting and beautiful countries I have ever visited, and that is the country of Japan. Japan is so unique, it's unlike any other country I've visited, and although I can't explore absolutely everything about Japan, I am creating this 6-part series where I am going to be talking about things to do and places to visit from the perspective of different types of people and their interests. I'm calling this series Japan is For, and these are the 6 perspectives which I feel cover Japan's identity pretty well. We've got the nature lover, the geek, the fashion icon, the traditionalist, the foodie, and of course the party goer. So let's just dive in and discover which characteristic of Japan we're going to be discovering today. So today we are kicking off this series and talking about how Japan is for traditionalists. So this is going to appeal to anyone who loves learning about the history and culture of a particular country and learning about traditional practices. And Japan is known as a country with traditions that are centuries old that are still held in high esteem today. The Japanese people are very polite. It's still customary to bow to people as a sign of respect. It's polite and proper to take your shoes off when you're in someone's home because traditionally people in Japan will eat dinner sitting on the floor. So, you want to keep the place as clean as possible. If you go and stay in a Japanese ryokan, the owners will often give you indoor slippers for you to wear, and then there's also another pair of slippers for you to wear when you're in the bathroom. If you're looking for an authentic Japanese experience, I would recommend visiting an onsen bath. Japan is basically built on volcanic rock, so you have a lot of natural hot springs. And even when you go to an onsen bath, there are a lot of particular rules that you are supposed to follow. So I would probably recommend looking up the rules before you go, because it can be a little bit of an awkward experience. It was kind of awkward because I just felt like people looked at me and they kind of knew. They were like, she doesn't know what she's doing. But the reason onsen baths are so popular is because since basically the beginning of time, it is believed that the onsen water has natural healing properties and it's good for circulation and for your skin and so on. As you know, traditionally in an onsen bath you are naked. So there are separate onsens for men, separate onsens for women. And it was a little bit odd because nobody cared and everyone's very chatty. I felt a bit self-conscious, I have to admit. But afterwards there seems to be a whole ritual as well where you sit on a stool and you have to wash yourself and there's like a thing that you scrub and... But then again, if you want the authentic Japanese experience, then you gotta play the game. You gotta get involved. So if you're wanting to learn a bit more about Japanese history, you could visit Hiroshima. That's the first place I actually went to when I visited Japan. And of course we all know that Hiroshima was devastated in 1945 by an atomic bomb during World War II. And even to this day, it's still a big part of Hiroshima's identity. It's the kind of place that says, yes, this terrible thing did happen to us, but we've rebuilt and we've grown and we're strong. And of course there's still evidence and reminders of the war. You've got the atomic bomb dome building, which is basically a shell of a building with still a discernible dome roof. And that is next to the Peace Memorial Park, which is a really lovely, calm place that has been preserved for remembering all those who lost their lives. There's a whole museum you can visit to learn about Japan during the war and the aftermath of the atomic bomb. It was actually really emotional and I found that I had to sort of rush through to the end because it got a little bit much for me. And then on top of that, they have a whole memorial just dedicated to the children who lost their lives. When I was there was a group of school children who all stood in this choir formation looking at the children's memorial. A guy started playing some music and the children started singing, and I don't know what they were singing, but it made me cry. With the history and their angelic voices, and they were paying tribute to these poor children who had lost their lives so tragically, and I just lost it. Really poignant and really emotional, but I think it's great to have these reminders to learn about the past and and move on and grow and learn. Hiroshima really is a beautiful place. And I would also recommend taking a ferry to the nearby island of... What? You're going to have to forgive me on some of these pronunciations. The island of Itsukushima. It's a short ferry ride from Hiroshima, and you can go visit the UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Itsukushima Shrine. The shrine is dedicated to 3 Shinto deities who were the goddesses of seas and storms. Itsukushima is actually translated to mean island dedicated to the gods, so some believe the island itself is a god. It was here that I first discovered these little wooden plaques called ima, and you will find these in temples and shrines across Japan. So in ancient times, people would actually offer up horses to shrines for good favour. And over time that changed to little wooden plaques with pictures of horses on them. And that has now evolved to people writing down their wishes and offering them up to shrines in the hope that they come true. And you too can go and pay a little bit of money to have your wish written down on this wooden plaque and offered up to the gods. But the most famous thing about this shrine is the floating gate. When the tide is out, you see the shrine just standing in the ground. But once the tide comes in, it looks like the gate is floating on water. And it's very beautiful at sunset. If you are really interested in visiting Japanese temples, then Kyoto is the place for you. Kyoto has so many temples you can visit, but I'll just point out some of my standouts. The Kiyomizu temple is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's one of the most celebrated temples in Kyoto. Its name translates to Pure Water Temple, and it's known for standing on this high wooden platform, which means that not only do you get to visit one of Kyoto's most impressive temples, but it also offers up brilliant views of the rest of Kyoto, and it looks especially beautiful at cherry blossom season. Another UNESCO World Heritage listed temple is Kinkakuji, which is literally translated as the Temple of the Golden Pavilion. This is a Zen Buddhist shrine. It's surrounded by some beautiful Japanese style gardens, and is just some breathtaking architecture right there. I mean, that is so unique. Where are you going to find that anywhere else in the world? I'm really sorry for pronunciation, but Tenryuji is the most important temple in Kyoto's Arashiyama district. Again, this is another UNESCO World Heritage listed site. It's one of the city's 5 great Zen temples and has some beautiful gardens to explore. One of the most famous sites in Kyoto has to be the Fushimi Inari Taisha, which is famous for its thousands of vermilion torii gates that lead up the sacred Mount Inari. It's about a 30 to 45 minute hike up to the Yotsusuji intersection. This is about halfway up the mountain, which is about as far as most people will go, but if you're feeling ambitious, you can carry it all the way up to the top. This is as far as I went, but to be honest, those views are just fantastic. And don't forget, Kyoto has its own museum, so you can go and learn about the history of these temples in even more detail. But it's not just Kyoto that's full of history. Even Japan's own capital, Tokyo, has lots of temples, and it has the National Museum and Odawara Castle, which is really pretty. The Nagano region of Japan is beautiful, and you can find the Matsumoto temple and the Zenkoji temple. But my favourite place in the Nagano region was the Kiso Valley. The Kiso Valley runs along the Central Alps. This used to be an important transport route between Edo and Kyoto back in the Edo period. And most travellers were on foot, so they built these little post towns every few kilometres to provide a place for travellers to rest and replenish. And many of these towns still exist in their original form, like this one. This is the village of Narai. The architecture of these buildings are so beautiful, and it's so peaceful and quiet. It was such a contrast to Tokyo. And you can find lots of great souvenirs in these towns. This is where I got my chopsticks. The chopsticks are actually still in the packet. I've still not had the heart to take them out and use them because they're just so pretty. But there are shops that are just filled with different kinds of chopsticks, and you can pick the design and material that you want. They're so beautiful, I don't want to use them. But the thing is, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to explore in Japan, but I just can't talk about absolutely everything. But I hope this maybe gave you a good starting point and some ideas of where you could visit in Japan if you do want to go and learn some more about the history and the traditions of the people. I'm so excited, and this is just the first video. I've still got 5 more videos on Japan. So I will be back next week looking at Japan from a different perspective. If you haven't done so already, please check out my latest series where I counted down my top 5 favourite places to visit in every single Australian state. As always, please remember to like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me because it means I know that people are enjoying my content and they want to hear more. I'll be back again next Monday at 6 PM. Until then, bye bye!